You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that is honest, reveals the facts, truth, and statistics, and does not mess around. Follow me, Taylor Phillips, on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Email me at TaylorGatorPhillips14@yahoo.com. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313, and go to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join our Facebook group with the same name. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast on Spreaker is also available on iHeartRadio and SoundCloud. Also a subsidiary of Sports Radio Detroit, thus available on iTunes and Podbean. This podcast is particularly not for entertainment purposes, and the views expressed by the host of this podcast are opinion-based. However, they do not come without facts, research, statistics, and truth, whether other people like it or not, and no matter how harsh or complicated it may be. This is the Michigan Sports Truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
Episode 277 of Spreaker Sunday is now in session. I'm Taylor Phillips, flying solo. None of my co-hosts are available tonight. So why don't we get to it? Tigers, lots of Tigers talk. Also lots of Lions talk. Some Red Wings talk and a little bit of Pistons as well. But first off, let's start with Tigers.
That one is long gone!
So they lose 2 of 5 the past week. The Pittsburgh Pirates take 3 of 4 in the home. The Pittsburgh Pirates take 3 of 4 in the home-and-home set, starting at PNC Park and carrying over to Comerica Park. Then the Minnesota Twins come into Comerica Park and take 2 out of 3. And the Tigers now stand at 53-64, 11 games back of first place in the American League Comedy Central, 7 games back of the second American League wild card spot in the wild card division standings. They are the third worst team in the American League, which means there are 8 teams still ahead of Detroit, chasing the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim for it, while the New York Yankees hold the first wild card spot, leading the Angels by a game and a half heading into their game tonight against the Boston Red Sox at the Bronx, in the Bronx. And every team's records can be found online at MLB.com. Now, this past Friday night against the Twins in a 9-4 loss, in the bottom of the 8th inning, third baseman Nick Castellanos makes a very clumsy base-running error by tagging up too early and then tagging up too late after Max Kepler in right field makes a catch when trying to advance to third base. Castellanos thought it was an uncatchable fly ball, whether it be a home run, a double, or even a triple. That could have been a game-tying 3-run home run, but it fell short, of course. But he got thrown out at third by a very significant distance when he should have held at second the entire time until the ball finished falling down into Max Kepler's glove. And then after the game, out of nowhere, manager Brad Ausmus obviously criticized Nick Castellanos and said, quote, "I do my best to defend guys, but I can't defend that."
Oh, man!
I don't really know what was going through Nick's mind. I can usually give you some type of explanation to defend them. I can't defend that one. It makes no sense to me, unquote. This is actually the first time ever that Brad Ausmus, of all people, has criticized one of his own players on the Detroit Tigers team. There are no excuses, such as everybody makes mistakes in this case. Nick Castellanos has already been known for making 16 defensive errors this season, most of them in the earlier stages of this season, mind you, which is beyond horrible and worse than Brandon Ainge's lifetime per season, and that's a partially different story. It's another story to witness horrible base-running mistakes like that from that player, Nick Castellanos, by example, and hear rare criticism from their current ball club's manager, Brad Ausmus. Wowzers. And we'll get to Brad Ausmus later on. Ian Kinsler, placed on revocable waivers, Ian Kinsler was placed on revocable waivers in the middle of the month, in the middle of the week, and was claimed off revocable waivers by an unnamed team, but it was unlikely to be traded. Now here are two reasons why. First and foremost, Kinsler hasn't shown good numbers offensively at all this season. That's the main reason why he may not be traded at all, because nobody might not want him. Nobody might want him. His low numbers show why, and that's bad trade value. Secondly, Al Avila, the general manager, as quoted earlier, said he has no plans to dump salary and was told it will never happen, which I still find very Ken Holland-esque. Al Avila sounds the same as Ken Holland in that quote. That tops the cherry on top of that dysfunctional Sunday. In that span, however, the Milwaukee Brewers remained interested in Ian Kinsler, but we'll give you an update on it if anything further develops. I doubt if anything will. First baseman Miguel Cabrera was recently listed as day-to-day with back tightness, which is nothing new at all. That is out of any question whatsoever. Cabrera is too injury-prone, and he's getting old as well, just like designated hitter Victor Martinez. But Miggy is indicated to start tomorrow because he didn't get a chance to pinch hit for Andrew Romine due to the fact that James McCann grounded out to end the game with 2 outs and nobody on base. And that gives Miguel Cabrera plenty of resting time prior to tomorrow night at 8:05 when the Tigers head to Arlington to play the Texas Rangers. The Tigers had recalled right-handed relief pitcher, that is, Jeff Ferrell from the AAA Toledo Mudhens, and optioned right-handed relief pitcher Edward Mujica to the Mudhens. Ferrell was released last August, but somehow returned to the Tigers, and just this past Sunday afternoon, he pitched a scoreless top half of the ninth inning against the Minnesota Twins, which is pretty good. He's another part of the somewhat bright future the Tigers may have, even if their farm system is still very bad. The Tigers have also sent Bruce Rondon to the Mudhens to find consistency. We remember a couple weeks ago when he gave up a grand slam to Eric Hosmer to really widen the Kansas City Royals' lead, plunked Mike Moustakas the next batter thereafter, and then 2 nights later gave up a no-doubt game-winning 3-run home run to Josh Reddick with nobody out in the top half of the 8th inning when the Tigers were playing at home against the Houston Astros, who were leading the American League. And they were leading them 5-3 at that point, and the Astros would hang on for their 6-5 win that night as it stood out. Just this past Sunday afternoon, which was earlier yesterday, Rondon was throwing nothing but balls that weren't even nearly in the strike zone.
You are pathetic!
And the fans were continuously booing them, understandably. I don't blame a single fan doing so at any time. So, Tigers general manager Al Avila sent him down. I know exactly why, but I'll get to that later on. But the Tigers are still not giving up on Bruce Rondon for the same typical loyalty reason. Oh, I just gave it away. And it's getting on the fans' nerves, understandably. Granted, manager Brad Ausmus was watching what was going on and had some concern. And as I promised, I would get back to Brad Ausmus, and I already just have. Except Brad Ausmus made the wrong move, bringing him into the game in the first place, which lost the game for the Tigers. It was tied at 4 when Bruce Rondon came in the mound. The Twins scored 2 runs. Brad Ausmus still makes boneheaded decisions in the game with the bullpen, which makes us know that he should definitely indeed be fired from the Tigers as their manager. Period. We all know that. Left-handed starting pitcher Daniel Norris is just beginning his rehab assignment in Toledo after being placed on the 10-day DL with a groin pull. Starting pitcher Michael Fulmer makes his return Monday night in Arlington against Martin Perez in the starting pitching matchup when the Tigers take on the Texas Rangers in the first of a 3-game series at Globe Life Park. Fulmer was placed on the 10-day DL with ankle ulnar neuritis a week ago. All games start at 8:05 in that 3-game set in Texas. Then the Tigers have off on Thursday, and then they return home to Comerica Park to play the MLB-leading Los Angeles Dodgers Friday at 7:10, Saturday at 4:05, and Sunday at 1:10. So the way the Tigers stand right now, you can tell now that there is no point left in rooting for the Tigers to win. They have to tank. They have to make Chris Ilitch lose even more money like he has year after year, day after day, month after month, week after week. Chris Ilitch is still losing money, and he's being left with no alternative but to sell the Tigers sometime soon, as Justin Spiro pointed out. And we already know all about that. So, in case you don't, I'll post the Spiro article about that, which was published 2 months ago. Now let's get to some Lions here.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Just earlier yesterday at Lucas Oil Stadium, the Lions jumped out to a 24-3 lead. They let the Colts score a touchdown at the very end of the game in the final seconds at the buzzer. They still win 24-10. Matthew Stafford, 1 interception, 2 of 3 for 36 passing yards.
Oh, man!
Damn it!
And then Jake Rudock throws 2 touchdown passes to Kenny Galladay.
I love it!
Rudock went 13 of 21 for 142 passing yards and just the 2 touchdown passes to Galladay, who came up with 53 receiving yards. Kerry Hyder, their defensive lineman, their key defensive lineman that is, was carted off the field with a significant Achilles injury and could miss the entire 2017 season.
Damn it!
He led the Lions in sacks last season with 8, in addition to 23 solo tackles and 13 assisted tackles, totaling up to 44 overall tackles. Speaking of injuries, former Lions linebacker DeAndre Levy filed an injury grievance against the Lions. They lied to the media that DeAndre Levy suffered a hip injury when he actually suffered a contracted parasite during a solo plane flight, as reported by the founder and editor-in-chief of the Detroit sports rag, Jeff Moss, whom you can follow on Twitter at JeffMossDSR. He may sound provocative, but he sounds accurate, because he has sources. More sources than anybody else. And that put Levy out for the entire 2015 season during the waning days of the Martin Mayhew and Tom Luan era. Then they lied to him that he was set to play again, and he underperformed when he actually wasn't nearly 100%. The Lions released him back in March of this calendar year, when they still believed that he was 100%, when they did not know that he was not nearly 100%. Are you getting my drift here, guys? Good. And DeAndre Levy really had a beef about that. I can't blame him for filing the grievance against that dysfunctional NFL franchise in Detroit that still has won only one playoff game since 1957, when they last won an NFL championship, which was exactly 60 years ago. This year's 2017, for crying out sideways. The dysfunctionality of the Ford family, then GM Martin Mayhew and team president Tom Luan, and the now GM Bob Quinn and team president Rod Wood continues. They won't make this franchise any better, and that's saying way too much. So, that's Lions talk. Let's transition to Red Wings. The Red Wings were preparing to make a trade due to salary cap issues, and the 2 possible players to be traded, according to Hockey Feed, are Peter Mrazek, the goaltender, and left winger Luke Glendening. Or center Luke Glendening, that is. Mrazek was mostly talked about in trade talks, according to Hockey Feed. It was also reported by Ansar Khan, one of the lame duck beat writers of the Red Wings on MLive.com, that if everyone's healthy, the Red Wings will be over the $75 million salary cap, which general manager Ken Holland anticipates, quote-unquote. He said if everyone's healthy prior to opening day, he may have to make a move, meaning a trade, quote-unquote. Now here's where the problem lies on this. This roster continues to lack flexibility, which is on Ken Holland's ineptitude, as one of my co-hosts, Frank Vajner, pointed out on our Michigan Sports Truth Facebook page. By the way, you can follow Frank Vajner on Twitter at Frank_Vajner, VAJCNER. He's also a co-host on the weekend sports talk show After Further Review on Toledo's own WXUT 88.3 FM, a student-run station. A student-run radio station, that is. Those are all the details of that story. Another story to point out, the Red Wings threaten legal action against the Charlottesville, Virginia Unite the Right protest rally marches over the use of their logo by one of the civilian protesters in that rally. Ryan M. Kelly took a photo on Twitter at Ryan M. Kelly photo about the people rallying with the signs of protest, but the guy on the very right end of that picture held a sign with a very identical Detroit Red Wings logo. Now, let me take a look at the Red Wings statement in a screenshot on their Twitter feed here. At Detroit Red Wings, the official Red Wings Twitter handle. The Detroit Red Wings vehemently disagree with and are not associated in any way with the event taking place today in Charlottesville, Virginia. The Red Wings believe that hockey is for everyone, with a capital E, obviously, which is actually obviously spelled wrong, and we celebrate the great diversity of our fan base and our nation. We are exploring every possible legal action as it pertains to the misuse of our logo in this disturbing demonstration. A disturbing demonstration, indeed. It's disturbing, it's illegal, it's really simple. Any use of duplication of any images of the Detroit Red Wings trademark logo without any copyright consent of the Red Wings and the National Hockey League is expressly illegal and prohibited, and that guy is going to get what he deserves, and he should. Yeah, he's a stupid fool, all right. And finally, some sad news to pass along. Former Red Wings general manager Bryan Murray died of cancer at age 74. He battled cancer for the last 3 years prior. Murray was their general manager from 1990 to 1994 and won only one playoff series in 1992 in that span, which led them to the North Division Championship Series, and was previously the general manager of the Ottawa Senators before his failed battle with cancer. So, although he was a failing general manager, still sad to see him go, leave our world. And my condolences and prayers are passed along to his entire family. So that's Red Wings. Now just Pistons I have to discuss.
Left sideline, three, and he answers.
Small forward Stanley Johnson scores 86 points in an OVO Bounce Tournament game Friday night. That was right after he had a conversation with head coach and team president Stan Van Gunday, and they, quote, didn't hold anything back, unquote. Stan Van Gunday didn't give much time to Stanley due to the fact that he didn't produce much offensively, which was detrimental to the Pistons at their entirety. Johnson was also suspended one game at that point at one point for violating team rules last season. His career is starting to slip away, and that's why he proved better at the OVO Bounce Tournament game Friday night. Now he just needs to prove it in the NBA this upcoming season. That was on a report from Bleacher Report. The Pistons really need him to step it up a few notches to save his career and help them make a deep run in the NBA playoffs next calendar year. My credit goes to Yaron Weitzman of Bleacher Report. So, there's also news on Boban Marjanovic, but we already know how good Boban Marjanovic is offensively. I don't need to discuss that. So, that leads us to our first segment of 5 questions.
It's time for 5 questions on the Michigan Sports Truth.
Question number 1. Does the criticism by Tigers manager Brad Ausmus of third baseman Nick Castellanos' base running mistake at Comerica Park Friday night against the Minnesota Twins change much? No. Because that has nothing to do with Brad Ausmus' continuous and constant stupid in-game decisions with the starting lineups and the bullpen.
Next question.
Question number 2. Is Brad Ausmus finally having a sense of urgency? I'd say a little bit, yeah. He's in the final option year of his contract with the Tigers, and his job is on the line. But he didn't care about that until he got really ticked off by that base running mistake by Nick Castellanos.
Next question.
Question number 3. Should Tigers general manager Al Avila sign left fielder Justin Upton to a contract extension? I'd say yes, because Upton recently hit 2 key grand slams, and just last Saturday night, a game-winning 2-run home run in the bottom half of the 9th inning to win it 12-11 for the Tigers against those Twins. He's too good out there at the plate. Sign him to an extension, please, and don't rescind it either. Keep him if you plan not to dump your salary.
Next question.
Question number 4. Can the Red Wings win their case of the illegal use or misuse of their logo at the Charlottesville, Virginia protest marches, that is? Yes, they'll win that case hands down because, again, like I pointed out, as it is, by law, by copyright law, any use of their copyright trademark logo without the express written consent of the team and the NHL is illegal and prohibited. No exceptions, period. That's all there is to it.
Next question.
And finally, question number 5. How badly does Lions defensive lineman Kerry Hyder's significant season-long Achilles injury affect the Lions' season? Very badly, I'd say. They're going to have to find another defensive lineman that is his size and can fill his cleats, that can help the depleted defensive line. So that wraps up the 5 questions segment. And to our entire audience, if you want to answer those 5 questions, just replay that segment portion of this episode and answer them the best you can without going out of line. But use your brains. Now for the other segment, what's your grade?
Pencils down, everyone. It's time to find out what's your grade.
Three events. Tigers manager Brad Ausmus criticizing Nick Castellanos' horrible base running mistake last Friday night. Overall grade, C-. From that point on, Brad started having some kind of sense of urgency, including his concern of Bruce Rondon's performance on Sunday afternoon, which I've learned overall. But again, it goes completely beyond Ausmus's continuous and constant in-game decision-making stupidity, which has been still happening all season long and for the past 4 years now. Event number 2. Tigers general manager Al Avila sending Bruce Rondon to the AAA Toledo Mudhens after Sunday afternoon's horrible performance on the mound at Comerica Park against those Twins. I'd give him an F. Just like the Tigers designated outfielder Tyler Collins for assignment back in May of this season, and he cleared waivers to remain in the organization, the Tigers are trying to keep Bruce Rondon, except in a different way, in the organization. They're just sending him down. They didn't even designate him for assignment or even put him on waivers. They have to release Bruce Rondon soon. They really do. They have to release Bruce Rondon soon, probably this offseason. But for now, I think Bruce Rondon is better off in the minor leagues. Now, event number 3. Matthew Stafford's performance in NFL Preseason Week 1 at the Indianapolis Colts at Lucas Oil Stadium. Tough to say, but I'm going to give him an F as well. He went just 2 for 3 in passing for just 36 yards, which is why Jake Rudock proved to be the better quarterback. I know this is only preseason, and Stafford's only getting warmed up, but this is the last year of his contract before he and the team can try to figure out a plan for a contract extension, except he has to earn it by playing a lot better than that. He's not terrible. He's not bad. He's great. Not only is he good, he's great, but he's just not quite an elite quarterback. And that interception right there just proved it right there. Also, avoid any further injuries as best you can as well. And that's your What's Our Grades, and that's our What's Your Grade segment. So for our audience, if they have grades for each event, post them in the comment bank below this episode. Please don't go out of line. Use your brains. So that's episode 277 of Spreaker Sunday of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Before I sign off, I want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media and have their friends share that as well, because I want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast organization is boosting its post on its Facebook page, and searching for local advertising sponsors. If anyone has a business that's interested in sponsoring this program, you can follow Sports Radio Detroit on Twitter at SportsRadioDET, at SportsRadioDet, and send them a direct message, or email them at sportsradiodetroit.com in the contact section, or email its owner, Roger Castillo, at rajcast81@gmail.com. Also like their Facebook page and join their Facebook group. And finally, find their podcasts available on iTunes and Podbean. I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Like and share the Michigan Sports Truth Facebook page and join its Facebook group. I'll talk to you next week on episode 278. Hopefully I have at least one co-host with me. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
Bon appétit.